served in the Marine Corps for 23 years before I retired and came here to Greenup. So I finished graduate school in 1955 as a high school science teacher and teaching major in education. I got a master's degree in education and teaching major in bioscience. So when I got out, I was teaching school in San Bernardino, California, and I received my orders to report for a physical. When I went to get the physical, I mentioned to them that I had 6 years of college and would I be eligible for a commission? And they said that that wouldn't be possible because at that time my wife and I had 2 kids. Since I had the 2 children, I wasn't eligible to go into a ROTC program, or a commissioning program rather. So I said, well, you'll draft me and I'll go in as a private, but you won't let me go in as a second lieutenant. And they said, that's the way the rules are written. So I went next door to the Navy, and the Navy didn't have any openings at that time, and they referred me to the Marine Corps, and I went next door to the Marine Corps. They saw I walked in not wearing any glasses, and they asked, yes, we'd be interested. How would you like to fly an airplane? I was 22 at that time, and I had never been in an aircraft. That was back in the years when you had to have a lot of money to fly. So as I was going through flight training, a spot opened up to go into helicopters. I had a couple of kids at that time, and I felt like that was probably the best thing for me to do would be to go into something that would pay off later, or I could go into be a commercial helicopter pilot. The LA Airways was opening up, New York Airways was opening up, and the flying off of oil rigs in the down off of New Orleans. So I went ahead and went through the flight training program, and I got a multi-engine rating. From there I went into helicopter training and became a helicopter pilot in the Marine Corps. I found the Marine Corps to be very satisfying, and I found it to be like a family. And then I felt when I came into aviation, I felt really comfortable and I wanted to excel. When I was flying in 1960 to 64, I was flying helicopters for Marine Helicopter Squadron 1 that supported the White House. I started under President Eisenhower, then President Kennedy, then President Johnson. But I was not honoring the Lord in my life. So God had a way of getting my attention, and he first got my attention in 1958 when we were flying H-34 helicopters, and this little picture across the room that you'll get a picture of later, I'm sure, is a crash that I was in, fell from 11,000 feet. This crumpled aircraft looks like somebody stepped on a soda pop can. And my mother was praying while she was preparing the meal out in California. And as we fell out of the sky, evidently the Lord said to her, Mildred, you need to get on your knees and pray, but she didn't know who she was praying for. So I remember looking at the ground as we were going through 6,000 feet, and it was coming up at me, and I thought to myself, this is what it feels like to die. And then that happened, and I don't even remember the crash other than we're hanging upside down on our seatbelt and gasoline's running down around us. I looked at the pilot, he looked at me, he said, we better get out of this thing before it explodes. And we crawled out the window because the aircraft had broken and the cockpit was underneath and the wreckage was up on top, and our heads were resting on the ground. The crash crew came racing over and expected to take out 3 dead bodies, and we had lived through the crash. So when I called my mother back at the aircraft carrier, she said, what time did that happen, Vance? And I said, it was 3 o'clock this afternoon when the crash happened. And she said, that's when I was peeling potatoes for lunch in California. And God said to me, Mildred, you need to get in the bedroom and get on your knees and pray immediately. And I dropped my knife in the sink, and I dropped my potato in the sink, and I went racing into the bedroom and got on my knees and prayed. And I didn't know if I was praying for you, praying for your sister teaching school in Colorado, or praying for your brother who was going to Ohio State University. So that's why God wanted me to pray. So now it all coordinates, because see, now I'm in a prison ministry and I run into all sorts of skepticism, and you know, you're there at the prison, federal prison, you're over here at the jail. And the other day I ran into a guy and he said to me, Colonel, he said, you know, I appreciate you coming and all of that, but I really don't believe in God. And I put my arm around him and I said, well, Jim, that's fine. That's no problem. And I can understand that, and you know, it's your choice, but would you like to know why I do? And he said, yeah, we really would. And so I took the picture out of the paper, out of my Bible, and I have the picture of the helicopter the way it looks normally, and then the crash. And I said, this is the helicopter I was flying on the 20th of March, 1958. And that's what it looked like when we took off. This is what it looked like when we crashed. And I tell them the story of my mother asking me what time I was falling out of the sky, and that's when God told me I needed to pray. There's no question in my mind. The Bible says in the book of James, the 5th chapter, the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man and a righteous woman availeth much. And so what is that? That's 57 years ago of time that God has given me, and that was the first way that he got my attention. But you know, you kind of drift some more, and then toward the end it was more successful flying and all this kind of thing. So he said, well, I tell you what, I'm going to send you to Vietnam and you're going to get an exotic eye disease called posterior uveitis. And 7 years later, I lost my flight status, and I was serving over there in the Philippines. And I heard a chaplain talk about the simplicity of the gospel of Jesus Christ. And the simplicity of just saying, I will submit my life to you, Lord, and I will accept your claim on my life. And 3 of my buddies took me out into Subic Bay. They baptized me in Subic Bay, and that was 41 years ago. So the first 41 years was all about success and professional success. Nothing illegal, but certainly not the right orientation of my life. And then in the last 41 years, God's led me into a ministry, and I found out that's where true happiness is.